For years they said I was the problem in the family, until one drunken confession exposed the secret my mother buried my entire life growing up. My mother treated my younger sister Emma like she hung the moon while I was treated like some permanent stain on the family, and nobody ever understood why because from the outside we looked like a perfectly normal suburban family, but inside the house there was always this invisible line between me and everyone else, because no matter what I achieved, it was never enough for my mother. I got straight A's and she asked why they weren't perfect. I won debate competitions and she skipped them to attend Emma's dance recitals, and by the time I turned 18 I stopped trying to earn love that clearly came with conditions I could never meet. Meanwhile Emma became the golden child without even realizing it. And honestly I never blamed her because she was younger and just accepted the version of me our mother created, the difficult daughter. The emotional one, the reminder of everything wrong in the family, and for years I believed maybe she was right because when someone spends your whole childhood looking at you with disappointment, eventually you start seeing yourself that way too. But everything changed during my grandfather's retirement party because that night nearly 40 relatives packed into this fancy restaurant ballroom pretending to celebrate while quietly judging each other like families always do, and after a few drinks my mother started making passive-aggressive comments about how some children bring peace while others bring stress, which everyone knew was aimed at me because subtle humiliation was basically her favorite hobby, and I probably would have ignored it like always if Emma hadn't suddenly snapped back. Maybe she wouldn't stress you out so much if you stopped blaming her for dad leaving, and the entire room instantly went silent because in our family there was one rule nobody ever broke. We never talked about my father, because according to my mother he abandoned us when I was 5 and never looked back, and before anyone could react Emma covered her mouth like she realized too late what she just said, but my uncle immediately asked, "What do you mean blaming her?" And suddenly my mother went pale while Emma started crying saying she didn't mean to say it out loud, and honestly I felt like my heart stopped because deep down I always knew something about my father's disappearance never made sense, but the next words out of Emma's mouth completely shattered my entire life, because through tears she whispered, "Dad didn't leave because of her. He left because Mom told him she wasn't his daughter," and I swear the whole room froze at the same time, because my mother immediately stood up screaming at Emma to stop talking, but it was already too late, and suddenly relatives started demanding answers while my grandfather sat there looking horrified, and after 27 years of lies the truth finally came crashing out in pieces, because apparently my mother had an affair shortly before I was born, and although my father initially stayed and raised me as his own, their marriage slowly collapsed under resentment and paranoia until one night during a fight my mother admitted there was a chance I wasn't biologically his, and according to Emma, Dad begged for a DNA test before walking away but my mother refused because she was terrified the truth would destroy her image, so instead she spent my entire childhood projecting her guilt onto me, treating me like a living reminder of the mistake that ruined her marriage while turning Emma into the perfect child who represented the life she wished she still had. And the craziest part was my grandfather suddenly admitting he secretly paid for a DNA test years ago after Dad disappeared because he couldn't handle watching me suffer, and then he dropped the final bombshell in front of everyone. My father actually was biologically mine the entire time, meaning my mother destroyed our family,